Hi, tonight I'd like to talk about the importance of the classics for your children. A lot of the 11 plus these days is based on Old English, and a lot of children are not used to the classics and the way they're written. So they may include Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, or Black Beauty. There are a few in this book that are different, and if you don't want to read a whole book, your children can get used to having one of the classic books with extracts of various stories. The one I'm going to choose for you is there's one from Alice in Wonderland, so I'd like to deal with that, a little bit of that, and also with the Emperor's New Clothes, because I've always been interested by that story. It was always something that made me laugh, even as a child. But anyway, let's have a little bit of Alice first, and then the Emperor's New Clothes. But this book is amazing because you actually get everything in here, Mr. Toad and all sorts of books. So here we're going to go for page 128. And Alice in Wonderland is truly an amazing story, and an awful lot of the comprehensions at 11 plus are Alice related. So let's look at this. For a minute or two she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in livery. Otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about, and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation for the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated in the same solemn tone, only changing the orders of the words a little, "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." Then they both bowed low, and their curls got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the wood for fear of them hearing her. And when she next peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no sort of use in knocking," said the footman. "And that's for two reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are, and secondly, because they're making such a noise inside no one could possibly hear you. And certainly there's most extraordinary noise going on within, a constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then a great crash, as if a dish or kettle had been broken to pieces." "Please then," said Alice, "how am I to get in?" "There might be some sense in you knocking," the footman went on without attending to her. "If we had the door between us, for instance, if you were inside, you might knock and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head. But at any rate, he might answer questions." "How am I to get in?" she repeated loudly. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees beside him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing had happened. "How am I to get in?" asked Alice again in a louder tone, very frustrated now. That's not in the book. "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." Alice in Wonderland is full of riddles, it's full of curiosity, and the language does take some working out. So get your children used to it, because it will make them much, much brighter. Let's look at the Emperor's New Clothes, page 56. We'll just have a quick look at that, and we'll go towards the middle. Soon the whole town was talking about this wonderful cloth, and the Emperor decided it was safe for him to go and inspect it himself. together, of course, with some of his most trusted officials, including the old minister. In the weaving room, the rascals were still making the movements a weaver ought to make, up and over and in out, and in and over and up and out, and their feet busy on the pedals, and on their faces looks of such satisfaction, but there was nothing there. "Oh, those patterns, sir," cried the old minister. "Oh, those colours. Heavens," thought the emperor, "I can't see a thing. I can't see a pattern of any kind, or any sort of colour. Am I stupid? But of course that cannot be. I'm the emperor." So he smiled and nodded and said, "Oh, wonderful, beautiful," and he admired it greatly. The courtiers, they stared at the empty looms and the fast-moving fingers of the weavers. "Wonderful, beautiful," they cried, "and oh, your majesty, remember the procession that is to take place next Tuesday. How marvellous if you wore that set of robes made of this most elegant material." Well, of course, the silly emperor, or his majesty, falls for it. And I'm not sure if in this extract they have him walking through the town, strangely, but then a voice was raised. It was a child. "The emperor has nothing on," she cried. "Oh," said her father, these children, you don't know what they'll say next. Of course he's got something on." And he shook the child angrily, but the people standing next to them murmured, "This child says the emperor has nothing on, and now she's mentioned it, we think he has nothing on." And the people standing next to them said the same thing, and soon the whole crowd is muttering, "The fact is the emperor has nothing on." And all that muttering and murmuring at last reached the ears of the emperor himself, and he thought, "They are right, I have nothing on." But he was too proud to admit this, so stark naked under the canopy, he continued processing, it says here, continued his procession through the town, and his attendants followed him, pretending to lift the train, though they knew perfectly well that, like the rest of the emperor's new clothes, there wasn't a train there at all. It's quite an incredible story. It just makes me laugh every time to really think of it really happening. It's quite extraordinary. Bye-bye.